Welcome back to the School of Buddha. I'm your host, a fellow student from the land of Buddha, and today we're going to explore a fascinating and foundational teaching in Buddhism, the Five Aggregates, also known as the skandhas. The Five Aggregates are central to Buddhist thought because they provide a framework for understanding what we often call the self. They help us look more closely at what makes up our sense of identity, revealing the parts of our experience that we mistakenly view as a solid I or me. By understanding these aggregates, we begin to see how our experience is composed of changing elements, and ultimately how liberation lies in releasing our attachment to them. Think about it for a moment. When you say I, what are you referring to? Are you pointing to your body, your thoughts, your memories, or maybe a mix of all these things? Buddhism teaches that this I we hold on to so tightly isn't actually a single solid thing. Instead, it's a collection of parts working together. This collection is known as the Five Aggregates, and by examining them closely, we can start to see ourselves in a new, more fluid way. So, let's begin by exploring what each of these five aggregates represents. In Buddhism, the five aggregates are considered the components that make up our experience: form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Together, they shape our reality and our sense of self. But, as we'll see, each aggregate is constantly changing. By understanding this, we can begin to loosen our attachment to a fixed identity and find freedom in the ever-shifting nature of life. The first aggregate is form, or rupa in Pali, which refers to the physical body and the material world. Form is the aspect of ourselves that we can touch, see, and experience physically. It's easy to identify with form because it feels tangible. We look in the mirror and think, "This is me." But when we look closer, we realize that our bodies are continuously changing. Cells regenerate, our appearance evolves, and sensations come and go. What we think of as our body is really a process in motion. Just as a river is never the same from one moment to the next, our bodies are also in a state of constant flux. Reflect on this for a moment. Think about your own body and how it has changed over time. The body you have now is not the body you had as a child, nor is it the body you'll have in the future. Recognizing this impermanence can help us let go of the attachment to form as part of a fixed self. Imagine the freedom that comes from not clinging to a particular image or identity tied to your physical appearance. It opens us to appreciate the body as it is in each moment, without the need to define it as a permanent me. The second aggregate is sensation, or Vedana, which refers to the feelings and sensations we experience: pleasure, pain, and neutrality. Sensation is what gives color to our experiences, influencing how we respond to the world. When we encounter something pleasant, we feel a pull toward it. When we encounter something unpleasant, we feel an aversion. This push and pull is a powerful force that often drives our actions and decisions. But like form, sensations are transient. They come and go, changing from moment to moment. Imagine feeling a moment of joy, like the satisfaction of finishing a project or spending time with a loved one. This joy may feel strong, but it doesn't last forever. It shifts, perhaps turning into a memory or blending with a new feeling. Sensations are like waves in the ocean, constantly rising and falling. When we attach to them, expecting them to stay, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Understanding the nature of sensation helps us accept life's ups and downs with greater ease, knowing that each experience is a moment in passing. The third aggregate is perception, or sana. Perception is the process of interpreting and recognizing the world around us. When we see a tree, we recognize it as tree based on past experiences and memories. Perception helps us categorize and understand our environment, but it's also influenced by our beliefs and conditioning. For instance, two people might see the same event, but interpret it very differently because their perceptions are shaped by personal experiences. Consider a moment when you encountered something unfamiliar. Your mind probably tried to make sense of it, perhaps by comparing it to something you already knew. This process of perception is a filter through which we interpret reality, often unconsciously. But perception is not fixed. It changes as we gain new experiences and insights. By recognizing that perception is shaped by conditioning, we can start to question our automatic judgments and open ourselves to seeing things in a fresh way. The fourth aggregate is mental formations or sankhara, which includes thoughts, emotions, intentions, and impulses. Mental formations are where much of our psychological activity takes place. They're the patterns that form our habits, preferences, and responses. When we say, "I am angry" or "I am happy," we're identifying with a mental formation. But just like form, sensation, and perception, mental formations are in constant motion. Emotions rise and fall, thoughts come and go, and intentions shift. Imagine for a moment the feeling of anger. It might arise in response to a situation, linger for a while, and then dissipate. But if we cling to it, if we let it define us as, "I am an angry person," we create a fixed identity around something that is actually temporary. Mental formations are like clouds passing through the sky. They are part of our experience, but they don't define the sky itself. By observing our mental formations without attachment, we begin to see them as phenomena rather than as a solid self. The fifth and final aggregate is consciousness or vijnana. Consciousness is the awareness that allows us to experience form, sensation, perception, and mental formations. It's the backdrop against which our experiences unfold, like a screen on which images are projected. But even consciousness itself is not static. It shifts with our changing experiences and states of mind. Consider a moment of pure awareness, perhaps while sitting quietly or observing nature. In that moment, there is a sense of consciousness without attachment. This awareness is not limited by thoughts or emotions, it's simply present. When we practice mindfulness, we're tapping into this state of consciousness, observing our experiences without clinging to them. Over time, this practice reveals that consciousness, too, is a process rather than a fixed self. As we examine each of these aggregates, we see that none of them can be identified as a permanent I or me. They are all in constant motion, arising and passing away. The Buddha taught that by understanding the aggregates, we can free ourselves from attachment and find liberation. This is because so much of our suffering comes from trying to cling to things that are inherently impermanent. When we see that there is no fixed self, we can begin to let go, allowing life to flow with greater ease. Imagine living with this understanding. Picture yourself experiencing joy without clinging, knowing that it will pass. Imagine facing challenges with resilience, recognizing that difficult emotions are temporary. This perspective doesn't mean we become detached or indifferent. Rather, it allows us to engage fully with life, appreciating each moment without the need to grasp or resist. One of the most powerful ways to cultivate this understanding is through mindfulness meditation. When we practice mindfulness, we observe each aggregate as it arises and passes. We might notice a sensation in the body, a thought passing through the mind, or an emotion stirring within us. By observing these experiences without attachment, we begin to see them as part of the flow of life, rather than as fixed parts of ourselves. Let's try a brief mindfulness exercise. Find a comfortable position, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths. Bring your awareness to the sensation of the breath as it enters and leaves the body. Notice any sensations in your body, perhaps a feeling of warmth, a tingling, or a sense of relaxation. Observe these sensations without labeling them as good or bad. Simply notice them as they are, allowing them to come and go. Now, shift your attention to your thoughts. Notice any thoughts that arise, whether they're about the past, the future, or something entirely random. Observe them without judgment, like watching clouds drift across the sky. These thoughts are part of the mental formations aggregate, but they don't define you. They're simply experiences passing through awareness. Finally, bring your awareness to the state of consciousness itself. This is the awareness that allows you to experience sensations, thoughts, and emotions. Notice that consciousness is spacious and open, like a vast sky that holds all experiences without clinging to them. This exercise is a way to experience the five aggregates firsthand, observing each one without identifying with it. As you go about your day, you can continue this practice by observing the aggregates in your everyday experiences. Notice how sensations arise and pass, how perceptions shape your understanding, and how mental formations influence your reactions. By bringing mindfulness to these aspects of experience, you begin to see that they are not fixed parts of a self, but rather shifting phenomena. This awareness can bring a sense of lightness and freedom, helping you navigate life's challenges with greater resilience and ease. The Buddha's teaching on the five aggregates is not just a philosophical concept, it's a practical tool for liberation. By understanding the aggregates, we learn to let go of the need to define ourselves, to hold on to identities, or to cling to experiences. We see that life is a dynamic, ever-changing process, and we learn to flow with it rather than resist it. This is the essence of freedom in Buddhism, living with openness, flexibility, and a deep acceptance of impermanence. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the five aggregates. I hope this episode has offered you a fresh perspective on what it means to be you, and has inspired you to approach life with curiosity and awareness. In our next episode, we'll delve into the concept of dependent origination, exploring how everything in life is interconnected. Until then, may you find peace in the fluid nature of your experience.